Hey, everybody, welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am so blessed and honored to be here with Elena Mosko, CEO and founder of Globiana. Elena, how are you doing?
Doing very well. Greetings from pretty warm Seattle these days. So we're celebrating the weather and greenery and all good things summer.
That is, summer has definitely sprung here in Texas, and you're in Seattle. You don't sound, pardon my saying so, you don't sound like a native Washingtonian.
Now, why would you say that?
Where in the world are you from originally? And before you answer that, I want to encourage everybody right now watching on LinkedIn, everywhere else, hit that like button, throw it in the comments. I want to know who you are, where you are. Shout out your company. Want to know what you're doing right now. How's the weather where you are? Let's get active in here. There we go. See, Jamie Massler, he knows the deal. Hi, Ben and Elena. Cheers from sunny Mississippi. Thank you, Jamie. Excited. Jamie's got an idea for a charity show coming up that we're working on here with Jana. So that's going to be amazing. Stacy Huff. Hi, Ben and Elena. I'm looking forward to the show.
Hi, Stacy.
Awesome. Fantastic. Stacy's great. Isn't she great? Stacy's amazing. Tim Quirk. Hi, Ben and Elena. Western New York is in the house and looking forward to the show. Originally from Seattle, but saying hello from Dallas. LinkedIn user. Fantastic. Cheers from Denver. Do you know this gentleman right here?
Never heard of him. This is my oldest son spying on me from instead of business development job that is very busy, I'm sure, but no pressure again.
Nice. Now, does he go by Daniel or Danny, or what do you call him?
Daniel.
Daniel. Awesome.
These days by Daniel.
Okay. I have a Danny at home, so I was curious what you call him.
I was highly unoriginal with my boys' names: Daniel, Jacob, and Michael. Top 3 names in the U.S. at that time.
Easy. Don't overthink it, right? I mean, so many important decisions when you're a parent, This is great. This is awesome. Farrell, shout out from also hot California. Yeah, it's hot in California right now. Record heat right now. Oh my goodness, climate change. Susanna saying hi from Mexico City. Look at Susanna here. That's fantastic. I love the international show. Stefan from Stuttgart. Great seeing both of you.
Oh my gosh, our German team is staying up for this. I'm so humbled.
Isn't that amazing? And I got to tell you, Stefan and I had one of the most amazing conversations. This was last year. I was at my prior employer. He and I had put, 15, 30 minutes on the calendar, probably went an hour. Just such an interesting guy, Stefan there. And you work with Stefan, don't you?
We collaborate a lot. Yeah, yes, that's the short answer, but we spend a lot of time talking to each other and conquering the world together. It's a pleasure and privilege.
Awesome. Look at this. We got Jana Chezanowski here from cold Rio. Jana, what is cold in Fahrenheit? Please let me know.
Wait, we missed Vinny. Hi, Vinny.
Vinny Valverde. Cheers from Portland, Oregon. Miss you, Elena. Look at this. Christian Hufalu. See, you're surrounded by friends here. Stefan says, right. So nice. Thank you.
Friendly faces.
Isn't that fun?
Fun.
Isn't that great? So I was asking you, if you're not from Seattle originally, where are you from, Elena?
Well, I'm from the country that doesn't exist anymore. Would you like to take a guess?
Well, I think it's got to be the Soviet Union. It's got to be USSR.
That's exactly right. But short answer is I was born and raised in Russia. And lived there till my mid-20s, and then through a few adventures and kind of faithful turns of life, moved to California originally 30 years ago, and spent most of the time there up until recent move to Washington.
So before we get into Globiana, because I do want to know what Globiana is and what you do, I want to know what you were doing in the Soviet Union before you got into global mobility?
Well, you'll be the first one for the copy of my book. But until that happens, because there are many shows we can do about that. This was a fascinating, even for a young person, fascinating journey. Now that I reflect on it with a little bit more perspective. But at the kind of my young adult years, right after college, I actually was one of the first business founders in Moscow at the time. And that had to deal, believe it or not global mobility or relocation, not even HR, but modeling agency. And it was one of those situations where there was a vacuum and big gap in services as Mr. Gorbachev was bringing down the walls. And market was hopping, but services of models and demonstrators weren't available. And a lot of businesses were looking for databases and services of this kind, from Japanese cars, calendars, fashion shows, stuff like this. So at a tender age of, 23, I think, or 24, I founded a first modeling agency in the Soviet Union. Its name was Matrona.
What? Okay, hold on. I got to understand this a little bit more. Normally, we don't get into to the world of international modeling. Probably need to talk about it more, to be honest with you. Elizabeth says, "Did you know that Elena used to be an international model?" So, how did you even get into owning a modeling company and starting the first one in the Soviet Union? Were you first a model?
I did some of that, but this is not the show that we're going to go any further on that. Yes, I was.
Okay. All right.
It was fun. It was great experience. I guess I am one of the few lucky people who have nothing bad to say about that experience, but I was also slightly on the older side. I just looked kind of youngish. So, but I had my degree. I kind of knew left from right, and that served me well. But what led me to starting the actual business was realization that, again, there was a big gap in services, and there were these brilliant professional young women who could benefit from it. And no true system to channel it through. So I kind of connected the dots.
So what was it like? I mean, this is amazing because I don't know that I've ever actually spoken to anyone who, was in business in the Soviet Union. What was it like in the Soviet Union in the mid 80s?
Well, I guess it depends on who you ask, but my experience was, even though a lot of it was intuitive, but I was definitely always frustrated by the lack of legal tools and protections in place. So that's what ultimately made me sell the business and not essentially regret it. There was a lot of catching up to do for truly supporting any kind of business. There were other things, racketeering and all of those things that you see in Russia-related movies. Unfortunately, some of them are true. So you kind of had to listen to your gut a lot, trust your senses about people who you engaged with, who you worked with. I was incredibly lucky because the biggest contracts and the most continuous contracts came from Japanese partners and Western European partners. And it was an absolute pleasure. People were very professional, even though we were young and new. So it shaped me somewhat and prepared me for the things that I'm doing now and did in between.
And that's a great segue, really, right? So how did that introduction to those foreign business partners inform kind of the work that you would go on to do and do now at Globiana?
Well, it did and it didn't. A few things it pushed forward for sure. And that is, first of all, realizing that all of us had a lot more in common than separated us. And remember, I was coming straight from behind the Iron Curtain. In fact, previous years, I attempted like 3 or 4 times because, for a young person, I was making very good living. So I thought I'd go explore Scandinavian countries, and Soviets wouldn't let me out, right? I mean, you could not get the exit visa because you had to prove yourself. So when I finally ventured out, I, amazingly enough, felt like I was a very organic part of that world. I never felt that I was standing out or different in any way. And that was about, realizing that cultural barriers with the right mindset don't have to be there. Another big push it gave me was brushing up on my English. I spoke English ever since I was 7 and took it in school, specialized school. But it was really influenced by those years because I had to speak or not even bother. So there was that steroid shot into my English speaking. And the more important part that it kind of talk about twist of fate, it led me eventually to graduate school in the United States, which translated into my current history and my family and
Wow.
all things that happened. So face or not, but every little step mattered. One thing led to another, and
So what gave you the inspiration to start Globiana?
well, that's probably the easiest question of them all, and that is personal experience to begin with. The first, I would say, 15 years, and I moved to Silicon Valley very early on, right after my graduate school on the East Coast, and ultimately graduated from Santa Clara University. But what I did a lot in those years is volunteer my time to help new transplants into Silicon Valley to adapt and figure things out. And a lot of those new transplants, it was mostly the spouses of executives that were literally left out. And there was a lot of human pain associated with that. I guess it was easier for me, but also, I got kind of thrown into things early on and had to figure them out. So I was willing to pass it on and pay it forward. And then further down the line, after realizing that years have passed, and not much changed in terms of comprehensive approach to supporting expats and newcomers to various areas of the United States, I connected with a team of people who shared that experience with me, former expats, intercultural experts. And when the perfect storm happened, where I had the team, we had the very clear vision in terms of the tools that we had to build, that I kind of found myself at the point where time to walk the walk because nobody else is doing it. And, I felt I had all of the elements.
What were those gaps that you saw? So you were kind of practicing this work as a practitioner, kind of as a professional doing it. In doing so, I mean, did you identify gaps and things that were missing and things that weren't being done that you just thought ought to be there?
Well, clearly, intercultural services per se have been around forever, and there are some excellent well-established names delivering over the years. The problem with a lot of it was, and this is what we found out by polling a lot of expats, speaking to our own and understanding what was your experience like when you moved across the world. And what we found is that a lot of times intercultural support and adaptation was treated as an event and not as a process. And Ben, I can spend a lot of time talking here about the employee experience and people's well-being and on and on and on. But the reality is, it's risk mitigation for the employer. And when you don't proactively support somebody continuously as they're experiencing not only the new culture, but the new office culture, the new management, new neighborhoods, there are a lot of things that people get exposed to that will harm the company in the long run. So that's where we concentrated. How do we, number one, make it affordable? Number two, make it scalable. And number three, make it holistic, where it can be available to people for the first 12 months. Ben, I cannot hear you.
Sorry, my mic was muted. You missed a lot of brilliant things. I'm going to try to remember all of them. No, I was saying we talked to Christian Hufferlo. We talked to some cultural people, some amazing cultural trainers and things and experts on here, and that is a recurring theme that intercultural training seems to be very underrated, often overlooked. And you were talking about, making it holistic, making it scalable, and doing all those things. How do you accomplish that in a way that really gets traction? Because it does seem to be something that's often overlooked.
Well, we don't have answers to all questions, but we have answers that seem to work for our clients. And there'll still be a great variety of clients out there who will go strictly for traditional face-to-face trainings. And by the way, we deliver them as a big part of our portfolio. One more full disclosure, Christian is a very busy trainer and a partner for us at Globiana, just so that you know, it comes full circle. We collaborate a lot. Hi, Christian.
Nice.
So I think it's unfair to go and point fingers at either HR or global mobility or relocation partners where they don't provide this type of service, because we need to make it, it's our job, I believe, to make it very easy for them to write it into their policy and stick it in there where the person doesn't have to sit there and wonder, they don't know what they don't know. And
right.
When you expect somebody to elect an intercultural training, it's kind of clouds and trees to them. They don't understand the hardship and potential risks and negative experiences that they might be facing. So the way we approach it, and that conversation has been pretty straightforward with our clients, where at the cost that we do it at, they don't have to think twice about being able to build it into their relocation package. Everybody gets it. It's opt out, not opt in. And the key part for us is our usability reports, because going back to the client with those metrics, even when they don't ask for them, and saying, your people are using it, and that's what they say about it, and that's how you're impacting your employees' experiences and safety, that's king.
Yeah, I think the accountability makes a lot of sense there. Definitely in the reporting back. Look at Christian says, hi, Elena. Thanks for the name drops, guys. Blushing here. Christian, and we got a bunch of people here checking in. Stefan and Vinny and Jana and Susanna. And I'd love to ask just everybody out there.
My neighbor. Hi, Darren.
Oh, is Darren Burley your neighbor? That's so awesome. Darren Burley checking hi from Seattle there. Yeah, what's up, Darren? Good to see you. I wanted to ask you all out there who are watching right now, how can we make intercultural training a more integrated part of the global mobility process? I'd love to ask the audience that question here as we go in and recognize a few people that are joining us here. We got Vinny here. That's awesome. Jana here. Look at that. It's wonderful. Elizabeth checking in. Sandra Clary, temporarily working from Hilton Head Island while visiting family, taking one for the team. Sandra, thank you for your service. We do appreciate it. It's getting warm here. Look at Sandra there. Let's take my jacket off in honor of Sandra, who's out there hanging out on vacation. I will also be on vacation next week. Can't wait.
I can't wait either. We're making up for 2 canceled graduation trips. So July.
Really? Anthony Walmsley checking in from the UK. Awesome, Anthony. Hope you're doing well out there. Hope everything is good in the UK. When are they opening up, Anthony? I need to come out there to London. Let me know. When can I come? Let's see here. Very cool. Jameson has a question here. You ready for a question, Elena?
Always.
All right, Elena. Do you help individuals or only corporations now? Very interesting space you are cornering.
Great question, Ben, and thank you. We have been under quite a bit of pressure over the last few years to open our B2C. Right now, we're B2B2C, so to speak, because the corporate sponsor is a big part of it. Definitely in the making, we have all of the elements to open it. But we believe that we're still a relatively small business, and after 9 years, still relatively young, going through clearly a lot of formative years, COVID and all. But it's coming, and we just want to be sure that we're really good and really deep with the current client base, and new opportunities keep on coming from corporate space and demands for subsets of our platform. So we frankly haven't had a chance to dedicate enough attention to B2C market.
Yeah, this makes sense. And I'm going to stay here just for a second here, okay? Because, I've talked to several folks on here, entrepreneurs, RMCs, who talk about the consumerization of our space. Obviously, we're in a B2B space. We sell services to corporations who are moving employees, but a growing number of employees are making their own decisions around relocation services. We're not going to get into whether that's right or wrong. People already know my stance on that, but it is what it is. So I'm going to stay here just for a moment and ask you, how would intercultural training have to change and morph and evolve to become more of a B2C product from the B2B space?
Well, I think it needs to start with modernization of the form of delivery, where people who plug in recognize experiences and things that they're exposed to in everyday life elsewhere, from banking to travel to social media to things like this. And that's where we started, putting things in the platform and customizing the dashboard and making it available to people at their convenience, on their time preference, and in chunks that they prefer. So I think we just will keep on going further and further in that direction. But I also think where the golden egg or the golden nugget is perfect combination of high tech and high touch in this space, because you cannot take the human element out, and particularly the relocation related experiences. And for all purposes, I am of course talking about cross-border talent, because we don't work with domestic. It's important for them to have a listening ear and somebody who understands the needs. So whether it's through an app environment or cloud at their desktop, we need to watch out for those two things to really speak the language that people can recognize and identify with. And the other part is, educating the HR and global mobility decision makers, because a lot of them, and it's just the way things are, but a lot of them have never experienced international relocation before. And it's very hard to have full empathy if you haven't really been there. People are going beyond and above just to take care of the people they serve. But having that international angle, whether through trainings, whether, making it available to those folks, where they can become our champions inside the organization and drive that conversation, and not just looking at another vendor knocking on the door.
Do you think it should be mandatory or required experience to have been on assignment in order to be in global mobility, to administer global mobility programs? Because I'll admit, I'm going to be the first person to admit, here I am doing LOVE+RELO every day, and I've never been outside of North America, right? I hope to correct that in August, but I've never been outside of North America. And sometimes I feel like, I lack tons of context around this,
We're sending you to Stuttgart next year. Once they open up, that's where we start.
Yeah. Well, I'm going in August, so you can definitely send me to Stuttgart, but I'm going in August. But yeah, I'll go see Stefan and the gang out there in Stuttgart for sure, 100%.
Yep. So please bring me back to the actual question.
Yeah, the actual question is: do you think that it should be
Okay.
a requirement for global mobility managers to have been on assignment or have that international experience?
I'll answer this question with a question. Why don't you, or kind of suggestion, why don't you ask a company that has experienced a lawsuit based on not serving their duty of care and not preparing people adequately, and them ending up in a situation that turned either extremely negative or physically risky or worse. There are plenty of those. And again, it's not about yes, of course, everybody cares about their employees, but it's not about necessarily that emotion or experience. It's about protecting business and offering very little. Budgets, are king, and of course we are all aware of that, and particularly this day and age, but offer something. So the answer to your question is yes, something should be made available, whether it's, we blend a lot of things. For example, for clients with smaller populations and smaller budgets, we'll rely heavily on e-learning part, and then add some of the high touch component as long as the budgets permit. Offer something, because I hope that day never comes, but if that day comes and you have done nothing to equip people when you're sending them across the world. And I have to tell you, we've had clients, no names of course, and individuals where, for example, one of the people in leadership positions lands in Malaysia and the next morning asks his co-workers in the office, what is this man that he heard singing in the middle of the night? If you're going into that environment and you don't understand the call to prayer and how important that part of culture is, you can completely unintentionally offend people. You can expose yourself to some very dangerous things. So these are the things you talk about. And it's a little a day, little steps. You cannot sit them in front of you and give them 1 hour, 2 hour training and think the work is done. People need continuous supportive environment where when things start happening, they have places to go with questions, to work through specific scenarios, develop coping mechanisms. It's a human pain.
Do you offer, and we've got a lot of great questions and comments. Keep those questions and comments coming. We're going to get to all of them. I promise you that. Do you offer ongoing coaching? Or is it kind of like at the beginning of the assignment and then it's over? Or is there like a hotline where I can say, Elena, I'm in this meeting. I just made a derogatory comment about a man praying in the middle of the night. People are looking at me crazy. What's going on?
The answer is to the first part of your question. Definitely, our team of coaches is actually very big part of our founding team, and our absolute prerequisite. And by the way, we have currently, I haven't calculated more recently, I think we have 14 nationalities on the team. So there's this collective level of understanding of different experiences that people can go through in different cultures. All of our international coaches have lived elsewhere and have moved across borders. That's pre-requirement. And
interesting. So that's a requirement of yours. So yes, that kind of goes back to my previous question. Should it be a requirement of global mobility? And it's actually something that you've instituted as a requirement, de facto or otherwise, in your organization. That's interesting.
I don't think we can. I think we just have to be realistic and understand how hard these people are working and what an incredibly demanding this industry is. And, we have been nothing but blessed by our RELO partners who always have our back, and we try to do the same. But let's face it, even the commitment that they stated years ago about nobody being elevated to C-suites without having been on an international assignment, even that is not being followed. So I think it's a long shot. However, what I think is doable, and that is including these teams into what we offer the expats, explaining cultures, exposing them to different scenarios, that can be done and can be done pretty easily. And that will develop the mindset that then will serve the people better.
Yeah, I mean, there's really very little substitute for immersive experiences where, I mean, if you haven't been overseas, you just can't even contemplate the differences. And that's what I'm learning as I'm talking to more and more people, and I can't wait to experience it myself firsthand. Alan King, hi everyone checking in from Germany. We got another German. The Germans are here. I love it. All right. Vinny's taking vacation time next week. Awesome, Vin. It's a rendezvous in Florida. That'd be cool. Robert Brizuela, show management a correlation of assignment success when using the service. How do you demonstrate the elusive ROI?
That's a very hard question, as you know. And the biggest problem with that is not on our end, but it's about the company's number one measuring and number two willing to share that data. And before you measure, of course, you need to kind of agree after 20-year long conversation, what constitutes a failed assignment. And in reality, there are so many more things that make it a wasted investment. If somebody stayed on the contract but is poorly performing or leaves a few months after they came back with all of that knowledge acquired that your competitor takes advantage of, there are many ways the assignments fail, but I think trying to enumerate it and translate it into some solid number, yes, we can give you the ROI of 207% based on the calculations that everybody else is doing. So sure, but if it's data, it needs to be data that's actually useful to our global mobility partners. I think it's a combination of things. I think it's showing the change in employee experience. It's generating, the feedback from their own, going back to the leadership, telling we love that concept of kind of percolating from the bottom, where we've coached somebody and supported somebody, and then they tell their team members, and people come to HR and say, I want this benefit. So it's little by little by little. I don't believe ROI conversation alone is going to get us there.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. And if you look at it, I would turn that around. You said before answering a question with a question, I would turn that question around on my client and say, what is the value of positive word of mouth outside of your organization? Right? Because what you're talking about is qualitative feedback and qualitative analysis, which is so interesting too, because I'm hearing such a movement towards the qualitative. And when I remember 10 years ago in my career, my bosses would laugh at me if I brought them anecdotal evidence. They say, show me the data. Anecdotal doesn't work. Show me the data. And now I look at the companies that are really being successful and taking huge leaps forward, and they're doing it based on qualitative analysis, i.e. interviews with people, right? Mm-hmm. Research, less here's a survey, here's a questionnaire, fill out this email, multiple choice, and more, let me sit down with you and understand your experience and then put that into something that's meaningful. So I 100% agree. And I think that we have to reframe the conversation away from, a dollars and cents ratio and more into the qualitative results.
And I think it's actually both, and the world luckily is making that turn, because a lot of these notions are getting, people first, I think is going to become a real thing, because companies don't really have a choice. You're looking at losing talent, and along with things that you mentioned about failed assignments, how about reluctancy to relocate next time, where people are getting tapped on the shoulder all the time, and she says, I'm sorry, it was not the experience that I want to repeat. So I think there are, at the very least, simplifying a very complex topic, but the way we get there is first and foremost, at least in our book, is the duty of care and risk mitigation for the company. Do it because it's good for business, and there's plenty of data there, and do it because it's good for your people.
Yeah, 100% agree. And you're right. When they get tapped the next time and they don't want to go, I mean, what is the loss, the opportunity cost of that, right? Because that person was relocated the first time because they were the best and brightest person in the organization, right? And you put them in that spot, and now they obviously did a good job, which is why now you want to put them in the next spot. And when they say no, never doing that again, it was terrible for whatever reason, you know, and now you're going to the second or third or fourth choice.
And then drill a little bit further into that champion, because expats are always the champions, right? If you didn't prepare them properly, so there's this guy who just shined through and through at headquarters, right? And then he's sent on assignment, or I'd like to say she's sent on assignment, and just to find out that leadership skills translated into a different culture look completely different. And everything that worked for you in the previous office environment, you fall flat. How does that serve the company? And it's nothing soft about that.
You know, we hear about that quite often when you know, maybe people come from hierarchical cultures and they go into flatter cultures,
Exactly.
and they don't translate, right? Or you know, command and control leadership styles versus a more team kind of style. You know, it doesn't work. Or maybe they find themselves even in a situation, a personnel situation where they've offended somebody. Shannon,
Sorry.
go ahead.
We talk a lot about risk of assumption, and that is, you cannot assume that things will be the same. That's the worst thing you can do.
I want to hear more about risk of assumption because I think I've been guilty of this. But first, I want to give you a compliment. Shannon Mayer says, I'm blessed to be part of the Globiana team, and I'm always learning more from this talented group. Elena, I love to hear your journey to the leader that I know and admire today.
Thank you, Shannon. Very humbling. Shannon is from Nicaragua, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have no idea how international your footprint is, or maybe you do, but let's do the shout out all the way there.
Thank you. You're drawing quite well overseas. Let's see here. So tell me about the risk of assumption. I want to understand this just a little bit more because I think we're all guilty of that, myself included.
It's, you know, this conversation goes for everybody, for individuals, for those who touch the relocation journey, HR, you know, top HR. We are very positive and very happy to go to those places that seem to have worked out on their own, and assuming that they will, that's what gets the business into a predicament. You cannot assume that because the previous expat or international assignee performed well and nothing happened, that this next person is going to fall in the same category. You cannot assume that the manager that's going to be receiving them on the other side and says, oh, I'll train him on, you know, on local culture. You don't know what stereotypes or personal experiences that person's perpetuating. We're all subjective, right? And that's, again, concentrate on risk. This is not the time to assume that something will happen. You, as a business, have to be a main part of standing behind whatever touches that person. And of course, you know, the same goes for decision makers in relocation space, because we hear, back to lack of international experience, sometimes we hear, well, we give them this welcome to America perspective. And, you know, with all due respect, great, but how does it serve? Yes, of course, we want people to have a smiley face that they push at the end of their experience, but how does it serve longer objectives? It's not about welcome to America. It's about what are the things in the United States that you need to understand, where you don't feel like an outcast, where you don't offend people, where you don't get hurt based on the culture. What are the elements that will make it harder for you to understand what sexual harassment is? What is diversity inclusion that you hear and hopefully practice so much of it here now? So those are deep issues, and it's not a nice little pamphlet. It's a journey that we need to be with these people on.
I love it. I love it. I think if we started thinking of cultural fluency like we think about language fluency, and then it's actually something more hard. It's more of a hard thing and less of a kind of a fluid thing, right? And like you either know it or you don't, versus, oh, I'll kind of get by, you know. It's like we would never send somebody to a country not knowing the language of business there. And I don't think we would. I would hope we wouldn't. So,
well, we do get by. I mean, I relied a lot on kindness of strangers, you know, people in line or the gas station to show me and tell me things. We don't have to do it this way. It's kind of too much is left to chance. And if they don't find that support in their own network environment, then it's a pretty lonely experience.
Christian's going back to tried and true adages here. That's what you get right there with Christian. Nicola, very important topic this evening. Listening intently. Nicola, it's always good to see you here. Shannon says, I am blushing. Look at that. That's nice. Compliment is free, but so valuable. Christian, no such thing as soft skills. What do you mean by that, Christian? I'd love to know. Christian says cultural training plus coaching will make the experience for the transferees more sustainable and effective. Is this more than just a one prong? Is this a 2-prong, 3-prong approach to be effective?
I think, and back to B2C mindset, I think we call it internally on the team, show me, you know me. Whether it's from the tools they touch that are built around their personal experience, all the way to coaches having very detailed and very specific insight of what these people are dealing with, including the culture that they're in. There are many prongs. And the key thing is not to silo the approach. It's not just the training. It's not just, workspace. It's not just family experience. We see it in a holistic fashion. And that's what I referred to in the very beginning. When we offer the benefit, we extend the benefit to the accompanying partner right there, because that was our cute way of reaching that group that so often is forgotten. We extend it in time, where we don't tell these people when they need help. They come back and they decide when they need it most. A lot of times, not until 6 months into the assignment, things show up. But by then, all of the boxes are unpacked and everything happened, and they're in their permanent or temporary permanent housing, whatever the result is. But pain and risks are still there. So it's keeping that mindset. And of course, yes, we are position ourselves as technology company with some traditional services as well in the portfolio, like trainings and team integration trainings, but giving them that very agile live environment that they can come in anytime they like, and they know they can connect either through learning experience or speak to a human through a coaching session in a very confidential environment where, we never report on any of that. That's the name of it. Meet them where it hurts, and don't tell them how to use it and when to use it. Make it all available and let people decide for themselves.
Wow, that's so interesting. I'm learning so much here, and Sandra keyed in on something I love. Show me you know me. I love that. I've never heard that. I don't know why. It sounds like something I should have heard a million times already, because it's so beautiful. Show me you know me.
Copyright.
Yeah. Is it copywritten, or is it trademarked?
By the way, talk about that, Ben. I meant to mention it in the very beginning. I think we should pass on the baton of humanizing global mobility to you and your show, because what you're doing big time, in my view, is putting faces behind this very transactional and busy space. So hat off to you. We can share. We're good at sharing.
Well, thank you very much. It means a lot coming from you. That was the whole point of the show, Love and Reload, really, was to put love first, right? And to really bring the stories that I was hearing at conferences and when we come together and maybe over a glass of wine, and the stories of people's history and why they do what they do and their purpose, and just to really get past the white papers and get into the heart of what we do, and to bring that to everybody, regardless of whether or not they can travel and be places physically, right? And so to bring that to people's computers once a day was really the idea behind it. And so thank you for saying that, and thank you for recognizing that. I feel honored. Thank you. All right. Anyway, not getting emotional here. All right, Christian. People often label the ability to communicate efficiently, to relate to others, to inspire, to motivate, to lead as soft skills. There's nothing soft about these power skills. Without them, none of your hard skills will work. That's great. That's true. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, is how I would paraphrase that as well with Dale Carnegie. You have some wonderful comments here. I just want to get through some of these comments as well here. Susanna says, love how you are raising this as impacting everything, including their professional and personal day to day, which is exactly what it does. You mentioned something in passing here. Oh gosh. Okay. We have a question. Jamie's been patient here. Jamie Massler. Thank you for being patient with me, Jamie. Do your coaches meet with clients in person, or is this all done virtually?
Jamie, thank you for the question. So we serve clients on locations in 140 countries, and where it comes to the part of our portfolio that deals with cloud support, and we have Globiana Expat Cloud, Globiana Business Travel Cloud, and not particularly relevant for here, but touches on global mobility as well. We also support military hires for a few of our clients, but we by design have to be borderless in that respect. So with cloud and coaching, it's all done virtually, which served us really well during COVID times, because a large part of our team and our close to 500 trainers around the world are in all kinds of locations. So that part for sure. Going to trainings and both expat preparation trainings and team integration workshops that we do, a lot of times they are delivered actually in the classroom setting. And plenty of times we'll blend one with another, so both. But for the cloud, coaches deliver through our platform.
Wonderful. And you mentioned not only offering intercultural training to the employee, but also to the spouse. Is that something you do standard? And why do you feel that that's important to offer to the spouse or partner?
Well, we don't feel that we support an employee, we support the family. Certainly those, and of course we work with plenty of single assignees as well, probably close to 50-50 at this point. But the accompanying spouse, that's where the journey started for me, and this seems to be the forgotten population a lot of times, who actually holds the key a lot of times to the overall success, because no matter how well things are going in the office, but when the working partner comes home and things are gloomy and doomy there because nobody has a chance to even start understanding what's happening around, it's an easy deduction to make. So we, from the very beginning, designed it where an employee is given the benefit as part of relocation package, and at the initiation of services, employee has a cost-free option to request an account, separate account for the accompanying partner.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, because I mean, I've relocated with my wife and family multiple times here within the United States, where I can't even imagine if it was to another continent or another culture. And yeah, when you come home and your wife hasn't found a group of people to hang out with, and just sits at home all day and doesn't have the vibrant life and community fabric that she had, or family support that she had where she was, or the kids don't have their friends. I mean, it's just and it's hard to do that if you don't have the cultural and the language training. So I totally get that. And then I see so many of clients and friends who have been on assignment, usually in the US, because that's just my sphere, but I'm sure it happens overseas as well. That ends families get separated, families get divorce happens, things like that, right? Because people just say, you know what, this isn't what I signed up for. When we got married, or we decided to enter into this partnership, this isn't what I signed up for. And so that's devastating.
And we see cases that are, again, absolutely, particularly in the day of GDPR requirements and things like that. We've had situations that we learned from when we were starting the company, examples where an accompanying spouse, not knowing where to turn, would call HR, and an administrative assistant would answer the phone, and this whole personal problem gets shared. I mean, can you think of possible disasters in terms of corporate environments and who is supposed to know what? So one thing that's actually very interesting and that we stand very firmly on: expats need to be supported by expats. You cannot designate somebody answering a desk and think this is enough. There has to be that level of empathy, and also, ability to strategize and understand how things can be better. And coaching does miracles for those people, and they decide where they take it. It can be a leader struggling with communicating with a new team. It can be an accompanying spouse who hasn't met a neighbor and cannot understand what's going on. So,
yeah, interesting. Very, very interesting. I can only imagine the issues that might arise. Stefan says it has to be very clear. Intercultural training and intercultural platforms help being successful abroad business-wise for private life and for accompanying family members. Yeah, and that really is the holistic. I mean, you talked about the holistic approach, right? I mean, it totally is. Let's see here. We've got we got a question here, and Stefan also mentions the lack of soft skills are hard. Yep, for sure. Susanna says, what do you think about including the receiving team on the training as well? I feel like we sometimes forget there could be a shock for them as well. What an interesting question, Susanna.
This is actually a fascinating question, and stemming from early experiences in Silicon Valley, but I used to, and a few of you out there probably heard me say it a number of times by now. It's like when you have, let's say, a Russian coming into a team in Silicon Valley that consists of one American, two people from India, somebody from China, somebody from Western Europe. Who is the expat and who do you train? And the answer is you offer something to that whole team environment if you want it to perform, because it's not going to happen on its own. And people are eager and very proactive once the right tool is offered to them, because everybody wants to perform. Everybody wants to not offend people in unintentional way, and to be culturally sensitive and educated. You give them the tools and they'll use them.
Is intercultural training something that's done outside of the expat moment and experience? I mean, is it something where companies just say, you know what, we're not communicating, or we don't have a team, a collaborative environment, or maybe there's not trust here for some reason? Is it something where it's even done? I mean, even within the US, maybe within a company, do you see that requirement? Or do what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. It's actually been a very, very busy area for us, particularly during COVID, because Christian, I was wondering when you'd comment. We are just coming out of a number of really big initiatives that dealt with exactly that, where nobody to speak of crossed borders, but there were global teams all over the world very poorly performing because of lack, and of course I'm simplifying here, but because of lack of buying into corporate culture, and because of intercultural barriers that were never addressed properly, not self-aware, not sensitive to where other people come from. As a result, a massive IT team was in jeopardy. And in this instance, we actually will be releasing a case study in the next couple of weeks that kind of goes deeper into that. But 200 people were trained and affected with very positive results. And it's all about corporate culture and intercultural.
That's so interesting. And I see company cultures where I could see a company culture where they just don't value ongoing education, training, and development, where it's like, okay, we're going to give you this service, but we're also going to expect you to work 10, 12 hours, for the, as soon as you hit the ground, you're going to be in production. And we're not really going to allow the time for you to go and get the training you need. to ensure your long-term success, because we're so focused on getting you productive because the relocation itself has taken so long. Are there different types of...
How good are they at retaining their talent? That's a simple question.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to ask, I mean, are there company cultures and types and personas that you see doing really well, and then maybe some that you see not doing well, and if people out there are leaders in companies, do you have any tips for them around whether it be cultural training or other types of training and development?
I think you always have to begin with a corporate culture, and it has to be a culture of learning. And learning means not just bringing these tools and solutions to your employees, but are you learning as a corporate leader? Are you constantly learning from your experiences, from what your peers are doing, from what the world is doing? And if you are in tune, then it will translate with the right tools showing up. I mean, these days, with Glassdoor, you cannot hide long enough. And when I talked about attrition, it's all out there. There's a scramble to retain the talent. And you heard, right? Like everybody else, 40% plus are talking about changing their employers. So how are you going to make your people feel valued, heard, enable them to grow, and make it easy for them to perform for you?
Yeah, it seems like the ROI on company culture, or the risk of a poor company culture, is probably at an all-time high, with Glassdoor and the things that you talked about, and the tsunami of turnover, or the great resign as it's being described, coming right now and looming, and kind of we're already in it, right? Where, you're right, 40% of people are looking for a job. So super interesting stuff here. I want to switch gears real quick, Elena.
Okay, I'm with you.
You want to have a little bit of fun. Stacy's shaking her head at me. She's like, "Okay, Ben, here we go. You want to have some fun, Elena?"
I don't know. I'm gonna say maybe. Let's see what you have.
Oh, maybe. All right. Well, let's see what you have. You got a top 5 for me today, Elena?
Oh, top 5. Okay. Sure. Top 5 movie quotes I use on a regular basis. Oh my gosh, my family is gonna
wait. I'm sorry. You read that wrong. I'm Ron Burgundy. Top 5 movie quotes I use on a regular basis. There's a question mark then. You got it. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Teleprompter joke. All right, let's get into it. Number 5.
What hump?
What hump?
What hump?
What is that from?
Any other fans of Young Frankenstein there? I know we're very boring here.
Whoa, what hump? When he had the hump.
Igor, right? Or Igor, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever the day is. Okay.
Can you explain the setup though, please?
No.
What's the setup? I love the Russians. The Russians are great.
It's random. It's always random.
What hump? So okay, but somebody So the setup.
Sharing something that's obvious, and it always is a kind of good round out. Yeah.
So the new what hump is what's COVID? When people say, "Oh, due to COVID, what's COVID?"
Yeah.
No. All right, maybe
not yet.
Anyway, not too soon. Let's say people say, "I love Young Frankenstein, love that movie." Jamie and Sandra. That's of course you too. Awesome. All right, number 4.
7 years of college down the drain. Anybody?
Does that go out to Daniel?
I don't know. It's Belushi in Animal House.
Nice. Belushi in Animal House. That's great.
I do not advise you showing this movie to your young children, but
yeah, that's a classic one. You know how long it took me, little known fact, to get my college degree?
Uh-oh.
What do you say? Uh-oh.
I have not Googled you, I promise.
Well, it's not, Google doesn't have access to it, I don't think. Maybe. It took me 10 years to get my diploma. 10 years. 10 years of college down the drain.
You're not down the drain, though. You don't qualify.
I don't qualify. Daniel says Animal House. He's heard that quote before. All right.
Yeah.
All
When
right.
when other children were watching Disney classics, my children were watching Animal House.
That's awesome. Fantastic. I love it. And now Daniel's you said in business development. That's where all the
He's on his third business, and he's also working full time in business development. But
wow.
he's a big time entrepreneur and pulling it alongside the full time job. So, woo!
Nice, Daniel. Congratulations. That's really awesome. Well, I think that there's a saying that that entrepreneurs are the juvenile delinquents of the world because they say this sucks. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to go do my own thing. And you say that in school, and you get in trouble. You say that in the world and you get rich. So
there are some crazy things that those kids have done already. It's like fascinating to watch.
Yeah, very
But
cool.
I hope I helped a little.
Yeah. And then Sandra, kudos to you for sticking with it, Ben. I have a lot of respect for that. Well, there's a story behind why I went back and finished my last class. We don't have time for that. It's not this show, as Elena told me. Number 3.
Just keep swimming. This is a personal motto sometimes, just it's from Finding Nemo, of course, but just keep swimming.
Yeah.
And I live on the river, so just keep swimming.
I was thinking, do you like get up every morning at like 5 a.m. and just dive in the river and just no? Okay.
We have to work on your Russian stereotypes, Ben.
I didn't make a listen. That's another show also. Okay, because I actually dated a Russian girl.
Let's do it. I can't wait.
All right, number 2.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. This somehow comes up on team calls sometimes, and I think I abuse this quote, but this is, of course, from The Wizard of Oz, which I love still.
Yeah.
So
it's a great movie. It's a great movie.
No offense to Kansas, but we're not in Kansas.
Well, I don't think Kansas took offense until you said that. So that's great. Christian says, yes, Elena, call him out. Thank you, Christian. I appreciate your empathy. Thank you very much. Thought this was a safe place for coaching. Number 1.
Coming full circle to Young Frankenstein. This one, my husband and I use a lot. Could be worse, could be raining. It's a classic to me. Every time, like we were kayaking last weekend and steaming hot, and I looked at him like, could be worse, could be raining, and we always draw a laugh at that one. But again, movies wise, I probably could use a few more suggestions because we're pretty limited and we always watch the same stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as long as Young Frankenstein remains in heavy rotation in the Mosko household.
And every time you see it with new eyes, it depends on the day you just had, right?
Nice. Very good. This is great. This has been a lot of fun. Elena, thank you so much. All the folks that came in and left comments, the comments were great. The questions were wonderful. I hope you all enjoyed it. You always make the show better when you're here. Elena, I'd like to ask you before we depart today, you want to leave us with maybe a final thought, something we should be thinking about?
I think if there's anything that I would like everybody to always reflect on, again, coming back to the area that we're in, is trying to find commonalities when we meet somebody entirely foreign because they're there. And not to sound holier than water, but that gets us where we need to be. Training and tools, everything else will help, but mindset is number one thing. See somebody with love, and that's the first word in the name of your program. So love means many things.
Yeah, I love it. We have much more in common than we don't have, right? So that's fantastic. Elena, thank you so much for being here. It was wonderful.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you. I'm really privileged to be here.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. I will see you on Thursday, where we have Jana Chazanowski, the new project manager and inclusion manager at Glomo. Super excited to meet her and introduce her to all of you. I say meet her. I already met her. I know her really well, actually. Running joke. But can't wait for all of you to meet her. See you Thursday. Take care, everybody.